prior to IGS entering into conversations with this particular client, they were having extreme reliability issues. They were facing numerous forced outages due to tube leaks.
Hello, everyone. Today we have a special guest on the Efficiency and Reliability podcast. With us is Kevin Phillips from Integrated Global Services. He's here to share a successful project recently completed for the pulp and paper industry. But before we begin, welcome, Kevin. Thank you for joining us today. We've been looking forward to this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
How are things in South America? How is the pulp and paper industry there? Is it similar to the industry in the US?
It is very, very similar. Yes, they all suffer the same constituents that plague the reliability of their assets. And it's primarily the craft process where they have very extreme issues of high temperature sulfidation in their pulping equipment, and that would be their recovery boilers, their digesters, their evaporators, and a lot of these mills as well also have power generating boilers or CFBs. They may have BRBs, and they also have constituents that affect the reliability of these assets as well. The one mill that I'll be talking about today, it was actually, we assisted them in bringing some reliability to their CFB boiler that they utilize at their pulp mill to generate power for their operations.
Yeah, I was about to delve into that. Could you please share the recent project that IGS has completed? Did this happen in South America?
No. This is a paper mill that's in the southeastern United States. It's in the state of Georgia, and we approached them actually probably May of 2018.
Okay, 6 years.
And yes, and they were having issues, obviously, with the reliability of their CFB boiler. A little background on their boiler: it's a combined fuel source, so they're burning biomass sludge. They have some tire derivatives that they utilize in their fuel, as well as there's some plastics. So they have very extreme erosion issues, as well as, because of the presence of some plastics, it resulted in some corrosion issues as well. So prior to IGS entering into conversations with this particular client, they were having extreme reliability issues. They were facing numerous forced outages due to tube leaks in this particular unit. And so we entered into conversations with them with the ultimate goal of increasing the reliability of their boiler, their CFB boiler, reducing the number of mechanical repairs that were required in the unit, and overall, just basically the ultimate goal, increasing the reliability of this particular boiler.
Right. Allow me to backtrack a bit. Can you explain the process of how we engage with this client?
Well, there's not very many in situ contractors that provide thermal cladding services. And IGS is the sole provider in this marketplace of a high velocity solution from the viewpoint of thermal claddings. Much more superior cladding metallurgy, which ultimately provides that required reliability. So as I was saying, they had gone out for tender for an upcoming outage, and upon receipt of the RFQ, I made a visit to the mill and sat down with the maintenance manager, a couple of engineers, and we discussed the differences between IGS's solution and the other solutions that they were also looking at rather, which were contractors that were providing a low velocity, very high porosity type cladding.
Okay. For our listeners, could you briefly explain the key differences between low velocity and high velocity thermal spray?
Low velocity it's a very old technology. I mean, low
Mm,
velocity thermal spray has been around since the early 1900s.
wow.
IGS developed our high velocity thermal spray in the mid 2000s. I believe it was around 2006.
Mhm.
The big difference between the two is the with high velocity, you have a significant reduction in oxidation or oxides within the as applied cladding.
Okay.
And that is achieved through, it's not just the high velocity of the conveyance technology,
Hmm.
but it's also the fact that we utilize our own in-house designed um, thermocladding wires, which are specifically designed for the thermal spray process, which um, produces a cladding that is of higher bond strength, much lower porosities,
Okay.
and a much more superior protective barrier for either a corrosion or an erosion application. A low velocity thermal spray, those providers are using basically just standard off the shelf welding wires. To steal a term used by our chief technical officer, Ian Hall,
Mhm.
they're spraying fence wire.
Uh-oh.
So, the final then applied product is really subjected to problems from just the viewpoint of bond, have a higher porosity, so they're more susceptible to disbondment rather of the cladding under operating conditions, which results in large failures in the cladding. And obviously, if you have failures in cladding where you're trying to protect against erosion,
Yes.
if the cladding is no longer there protecting, the carbon steel tube is then subjected and then to the constituents. And then the next thing you know, you have a tube leak and it brings the unit down.
I imagine the conversation with the client was quick and they immediately understood the need for this technology, right?
Yes and no. They quickly saw the advantages of what IGS was bringing to the table from the viewpoint of our um, all of our extensive research and development that we had done and have done to provide a much more superior cladding, which ultimately leads to that increase in the reliability, increase in our outage cycles, and reducing the mechanical repairs. Um, but obviously, superior claddings come with a much higher price point. So
Okay.
that was one of the major um,
Hindrances.
points of discussion. I know, but with through the results of long conversations and discussions, it became evident to them that the IGS advantages over low velocity thermal spray providers would provide them what they were looking for, which was that increase in reliability, longer outage cycles and reduction in those mechanical repairs, which are very time consuming and actually very costly when you start having to replace actual whole panel sections, of the
Yes.
boiler.
All right.
So, with that being said, and with them fully understanding the advantages of the IGS solutions, we actually were able to secure a long-term service agreement with this client. So
Okay.
we are now their sole provider for thermal spray claddings in their CFB, and they have been able to run now uh, since our first successful application in, I believe it was 2021 or no 2022. They have not had a tube failure within any of the cladded areas that have IGS, high velocity thermal spray, or HVTS.
All right. So, what would you say is the main benefit that the client got from this partnership? Like, what is the key takeaway?
Main takeaway,
Uh-huh.
definitely the increase in the reliability of their boiler. I mean, if when you have a unit that's providing power to a complete a pulp mill, that boiler goes down. They then have to utilize power from the main grid, power grid, which is costly to them. Um, and then, of course, when they can have a boiler that is reliable, they're not being forced into forced outages, which are very costly to them because, again, loss of production, all of those costs that come with a piece of equipment within the whole process that has come down due to a forced outage.
For our listeners, apart from the cost, another common question is about the duration and the process of the actual cladding and the application of HVTS. So, can you elaborate on that further?
Okay, yeah. Well, we partner with all of our customers. It becomes a marriage, if you wish.
Okay.
I like to say to these people when I'm talking with them, I'm not here to date you. I'm here to marry you. I want to be around for a long time, helping you to maintain the reliability of your asset. Um, the we worked together and came to put into place a systematic plan of replacing the existing low velocity cladding that was within the unit
Mhm,
that was not providing them the protection that they needed.
mhm.
And it was a long term, hence the long term service agreement or master service agreement, where we could get the unit into a position of reliability through the application of a more superior cladding, but not impact uh, their maintenance budgets too heavily. So, it's over a number of years, and matter of fact, we'll be heading back down to this mill in late May, early June of 2024 to
Okay.
continue this whole process. But they, like anybody in the pulp and paper in any industry where they have their turnarounds, critical path is it means dollars to them. So
Yes.
we attack these projects with the appropriate number of technicians and equipment so that we can successfully complete the prescribed scope of work within the critical path timelines that are provided to us, and to do that in a very successful, professional, and high quality fashion is highly valued, by these types of clients.
All right. In an alternate universe, let's say the client rejected IGS 6 years ago. They rejected high velocity thermal spray. What would have happened to them now if they said no to
Most
HVTS?
likely, they would still be facing those forced outages. They'd be having to cut and replace tube sections, panels,
And that's
yeah, you know,
costly, right?
and
Replacement.
that is very costly to it's time consuming. When you think that IGS can come in and do, a 500 square foot application and allocate the appropriate, the required um, equipment and manpower to successfully address that kind of scope of work and be done in 5 12-hour shifts. That means a lot compared to where they have to cut out the panels, weld in
Yes.
the panels. I mean, when those new panels are welded in, obviously there's a heck of a lot more goes to it. That you got to test the welds. You have to then pressurize the vessel to make sure those welds, there's no leaks, because of course leaks in a operating boiler, it can be very dangerous. You add water to a burning bed of any material, be it black liquor or in this case a CFB, it could end up leading towards explosions, things of this nature. So there's a potential of loss of life, loss of equipment. It's a very dangerous situation. So
All right. So, Kevin, we understand you're very busy. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. We've learned a lot, and hopefully, our listeners have too about the solutions that IGS provides for the pulp and paper industry. And as you said, it's not just a transaction, it is a long term partnership And it's always best to consider long-term costs rather than, focusing solely on immediate expenses.
Yes, absolutely. Yep,
There you
yep,
go. Yeah.
yep.
So,
We may be expensive coming out of the blocks,
mhm,
coming out of the starting block, but when you have a superior solution for either be it a corrosion or a corrosion erosion constituent or issue, when you can provide a solution to a client that gives them the reliability and the peace of mind that they can safely operate that asset, it's you get what you pay for.
thank you, Kevin.
Thank you very much for having me.
For all our listeners today, if you have questions or you need more information about the services that IGS provides for the pulp and paper industry, please visit our website at www.integratedglobal.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast. The links are provided in the description. So feel free to reach out to us for any corrosion or erosion problems your company may have. And once again, thank you for joining us.